What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And I'm here to kick off a new segment today, Underappreciated Manga. And I have to start off with my favorite manga of all time, 666 Satan, also known as O Parts Hunter in America. So this is another new segment. First, I unveiled best characters, now underappreciated manga. But before I get off into 666 Satan, let me just outline a couple of things. First, this segment is not going to be exclusively about manga. It'll also be about anime as well. I know this one is called Underappreciated Manga, but that's only because 666 Satan is a manga. I'll also be talking about anime as well. Um, and I'm going to be talking about anime and manga that's not talked about a lot. So, not necessarily obscure anime and manga, because I don't want to get too obscure on you guys, but just anime and manga that kind of get a little bit of attention, but I think deserve more attention. And just to clear up something right quick, these are not the series I think are the best because I know when somebody puts out a segment like this, people automatically assume that you're talking about the best anime and manga. This segment is not about the best anime and manga. It's simply about series that I think deserve more attention. So my purpose here is to bring attention to these various series and also to explain why they deserve more attention. So that's pretty much what my purpose is. And also, I don't want these to be like full length reviews. I want them to be somewhat general, just general appraisals. I don't want to get too much into the details, although I'll get into a little bit of detail with these. Alright, so first, summary. So the story basically chronicles the adventures of Ruby Crescent and Geofreed. And the main character is Ruby Crescent, but she's not the main protagonist. Sort of like Fairy Tail in a way, because in Fairy Tail you have Lucy, who is narrating the story, who's the main character of the story, but Natsu is the main protagonist. And here it's similar because Ruby Crescent is the main character, but Geofreed is the main protagonist. And Ruby Crescent, her father was an archaeologist who specialized in ancient artifacts known as oparts. I'll get a little bit into that later on. But anyway, he dies under mysterious circumstances, and it's sort of implied that his death is tied to his work. It's some way tied to these ancient artifacts known as oparts. And Ruby wants to solve the mystery behind his death, so she kind of picks up where her father leaves off, and she also becomes an archaeologist specializing in these ancient artifacts known as oparts. And while she's at an archaeological ruin looking for these oparts, she meets Geofreed. And like I said before, Geofreed is the main protagonist of Oparts Hunter. And Ruby, sort of to Geofreed's chagrin, immediately takes a liking to him. And it's pretty clear that Geofreed is not interested in becoming a friend. He's not interested in her friendship whatsoever. The only thing he cares about is money and world domination. No, very interesting goal for a main protagonist of a shonen series, world domination. But that's his goal, is to get a lot of money and world domination. So Ruby, basically, in order to keep him around, she pays him, because Geofreed is interested in money, she pays him in order to be her bodyguard, because she kind of fears for her safety. She knows that, like her father, there's a potential that she might be killed because she's also investigating these oparts. And this relationship becomes, this sort of bodyguard protection relationship becomes the foundation of an eventual friendship between Ruby Crescent and Geofreed. So that's sort of the foundation of the manga, or of the story rather. So the story basically chronicles their adventures together, and later the story becomes more complicated because they get caught up they get caught in a crossfire in a fight between two organizations. One is the Steel Republic, which is sort of like a government or a country or nation type body, and the other is the Xenom organization, which is like this rogue organization that's sort of like a Akatsuki in a way. And now let me talk about the world building, which is something that's very, very interesting for a shonen series. It's heavily influenced by Judaic mythology. Basically, the mythology surrounding, well, I don't want to offend anybody by calling it mythology, but most scholars refer to it as mythology. So the mythology of the Old Testament. So in this world, angels and demons are in fact real. Although there is no God. There's never any mention of God or any illusion that there is a God, but angels and demons are real in this world. And for anybody who knows about the Old Testament, you should know that there's actually more than one devil. There's significant number of devils actually in the Old Testament. Some of you may know some of these devils. One is named Mephistopheles, one is Legion, one is Beelzebub, and of course the chief devil, Satan himself. So angels and demons are actually, um, a reality in this world, if you will. And the story revolves around how the Steel Republic and the Xenom organization are trying to capture and use these angels and demons as sort of weapons of mass destruction. And what they have to do is they have to capture them and put them into a Kabbalah, which is the where the angels go, and the reverse Kabbalah, which is where the demons go. And if you collect all of the angels and all of the demons in their respective Kabbalah, then you gain basically an enormous amount of power. And one thing I forgot to mention, actually, the person who wrote Opart's Hunter, the mangaka of Opart's Hunter, is Seishi Kishimoto, Masashi Kishimoto's brother. So there's actually, you can tell that they were influenced by some similar things, because it's sort of similar to, because Opart's Hunter is sort of similar to Naruto in the sense that you have the Biju who have to be collected by Akatsuki and put into the Ghetto Mazo. And in Opart's Hunter, you have the angels and demons who have to be collected and put into the Kabbalah and the reverse Kabbalah, respectively. And also, just like Naruto is a Jinchuriki, where there's a Biju sealed inside him, the nine-tailed demon fox, in Opart's Hunter, Geofreed also has Satan sealed within inside him. So he's sort of like a Jinchuriki, if you will. And one of the things I really, really like about this manga is not just the fact that obviously Seishi Kishimoto has a lot of knowledge about the Bible and about Judaic mythology in particular, but I love the way he integrates that mythology into the story in a really organic way, so that it doesn't feel like you're overwhelmed with a bunch of information that comes from the Bible, but rather he integrates it into the story in a very nice way. And I really like that. And so, just to give you some basic understanding of the power system, a fuller explanation. So, on the one hand, you have these angels and demons who have to be collected and who can also be sealed within a person. Um, that's one part of the power system. Another part of the power system is the O parts, which I've already mentioned a couple of times. And it's a very basic power system, but I wouldn't call it bland. So the O parts are ancient tools that are left over from an extinct civilization. And what happens is every person has spiritual energy, and if they cultivate their spiritual energy, they can infuse these artifacts, these O parts, with spiritual energy, and that allows them to activate the effects of these O parts. And what's interesting is not all of these O parts are weapons. So some of them are like pans, that like frying pans. So if you use your spiritual energy, you can use the pan to heat something up and cook with. So stuff like that, and some of them are toys, and there's a ranking scale from, like, I believe D to S. So some O parts are really, really simple, like the D rank O parts, like the frying pans, and some are S rank O parts that are really, really complicated. Some of these O parts can have 100 effects. I mean, it's just really ridiculous. So when I say that the system is very basic, yeah, it's very basic. You just use your spiritual energy to activate effects, but it's not bland, because if you have a really powerful O part, you can activate really crazy and ridiculous effects, and sometimes effects that range up to 100 different ones just for one O part. So very, very interesting power system. And so now getting into a little bit more analysis of the series about why I really like it. I really like this series, and I really think it deserves attention because it's a mature shonen. I mean, this isn't, not to put down other shonen, but if you're looking for something like Naruto with, I can do anything, I'm an idealist, no one can stop me, this isn't the manga for you. Seriously, this just isn't the manga for you. I mean, it's a very, very mature shonen manga. It deals obviously with themes of death and friendship and self-sacrifice, but it's incredibly mature in the sense that, as one reviewer put it, this is what you read once you outgrow Naruto. People just don't become friends in this manga. So, Ruby Crescent and Geofreed had to go through some pretty hellish experiences to build their friendship. They didn't just come to each other and say, I want to be your friend, and that's the way it was. And in fact, there's a sort of very, very tense situation in this manga where Geofreed has wronged a character named Cross in just a very horrendous way, and there's this huge irony because they actually get put on the same team as each other, and they never become friends. They never really develop a bond with each other, but they're brought together by the fact that they have other enemies that they have to fight. So it's very mature in the sense that it's just not a romantic idea of friendship, especially not a pathological idea of friendship in the way Naruto is after Sasuke. And also it's mature in the sense that the villains here are not redeemed at all. I think there's maybe one villain who's redeemed, and even then, that's kind of shaky. But the villains here are not redeemed at all. I mean, once somebody's established as a villain, they are a villain and they remain a villain. And another thing, not everybody lives. Seriously, not everybody lives. So if you don't like character deaths in your manga, I mean significant character deaths, you shouldn't read you shouldn't read this manga, because like I said, it's very mature. And another reason why, probably the main reason why I think this manga deserves so much more attention than it gets, is that Geofreed, and this is just my opinion, I haven't read every shonen manga, but in my opinion, Geofreed is the best modern shonen protagonist, bar none. Bar none. Certainly better than the protagonist of the big three. I mean, if you talk about One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Hitman Reborn, Fairy Tail, Hunter x Hunter, Geofreed is the best protagonist of all of them. The best modern shonen protagonist. His character development is just absolutely exceptional. Like I said before, he starts off wanting world domination. Like I said before, it's a rather interesting and unique goal for a protagonist of a shonen manga. And he he never goes on, I mean, he goes on sort of adventures, but they're not adventures like I want to become the strongest ninja or I'm going treasure hunting. It's really not that kind of story at all. And as in Seishi shows through Geofreed's experience how he develops psychologically and ethically. First through his relationship with Ruby Crescent, and then through other characters, but also he shows how he develops pretty much rather early in the story. Maybe it's not so early. Well, yeah, actually it is pretty early in the story through some significant character deaths that just absolutely change Geoffried and makes him do a 180 with respect to his goals. So Geoffried's character development is just absolutely amazing. By the end of the series, Geoffried is a fully realized and mature adult. I mean, he just grows out of that kid mentality and is awesome because he starts off with a sort of kid mentality at the beginning, but by the end of it, his character development is exceptional, his characterization is exceptional, and he's become a fully realized, mature adult. He's actually, I mean, it's rather striking because he's so much different by the end of the series than he was when at the beginning of the series. Just very very good character development. But even if I'm not just talking about Geoffrey in general, the characterization of this series is exceptionally strong. The mangaka takes great care in making sure that all of the main characters throughout the series and main protagonists get their own time to shine. They get their own character development. And the main characters don't suffer from they don't suffer from these infantile pathologies that you see when you look at, for example, Luffy from One Piece or Naruto from Naruto. I mean, they actually become adults. In one sense, they're infantile, but then they quickly realize that they have to grow out of that and they become adults. So that's what I mean when I say it's a more mature manga because it's for children, but as the story moves along, you realize that the main characters and protagonists of the series are actually becoming adults. There's no other way to say it. And yeah, they go through. And another thing is that they go through horrible experiences. I mean, and not just the main character Geoffrey, but the main characters. I mean, they all in some significant way go through some horrendous experience that changes them. Although it doesn't twist them up into knots, it does change them in a significant way with respect to their character development. Another reason why I think this series deserves more attention is because of Ruby Crescent. She is a very, very, very strong female lead. I mean, both physically and psychologically. Physically, by the time the series ends, she is a top tier character. I mean, she is like really a top tier character. And in fact, it's actually debatable whether or not by the end of the series, Geoffrey, who's the main protagonist, is stronger or Ruby Crescent, the main character, is stronger. I mean, she's one of the most powerful female leads I've ever seen in a shonen manga. I mean, and again, both physically and psychologically, because even through the somewhat horrible experiences that she has throughout the series, she matures and her character development is just pretty much excellent. And also for what she does at the end of the series. See, this is another thing. Not only is she one of the strongest female leads I've ever seen in a shonen series, but she's also her character is also important to the series because at the end of the series she does something along with Geoffrey and Cross, who I've mentioned before, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, she's actually integral to the plot throughout the story, even up to the conclusion, which I find to be just amazing. And the sort of final reason why I think this series deserves more attention is because of the themes. The themes are so much though, and it's not just the themes, but how Seishi Kishimoto handles the themes. And we're talking about themes that are not just your generic vague themes like I want to be the best at X or I want to become the strongest at Y. It's themes about identity and freedom and self-sacrifice. And by the end of the series, it becomes incredibly philosophical, especially with Geoffrey and the discussion that's going on at the end of the series about the nature of consciousness and the nature of both group consciousness and individual consciousness. The series becomes incredibly philosophical towards the end, especially in that final fight. And another thing that I really, really like about the themes in this story is that the fights about the themes and how they relate to the fights is that the fights are never used to resolve central conflicts. They're only used as vehicles to resolve deeper ideological conflicts that are posed by the narrative. And I've mentioned this before where I said that fights never resolve central conflicts of stories. The fights are only vehicles to explore themes that are brought up by the story. And that's another thing that I really like about this manga. And the final thing, which I love about this manga, has to be the ending. And I won't spoil it for you guys, but I will say this. Some of you will love it, some of you will hate it, and some of you will just be absolutely shocked. Because the first time I read the series, I was absolutely shocked by the ending of the series. And I mean, if there was one reason I had to pick as to why this series, Parts Hunter, is my favorite, it has to be the ending. I absolutely love the ending of this series. But again, I'm going to warn you, if you're not a fan of the more mature shonen series, then you may not like it, but you'll definitely respect the end of the series, because Seishi Kishimoto took a huge risk with the ending of 666 Satan. So definitely check out this manga. The one thing I would say though is I really wish this manga would get an anime. I would just love to see an Old Parts Hunter anime, but you guys should definitely check out this manga. It's an awesome series. I highly recommend it. So this was your boy Uba Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.